Good evening, everybody. It is Friday, October the 3rd, 2025. Welcome to Courtroom Insider. Have we got a show for you? This is a case that is crazy. I admit, I had not heard of this case, and it happened right here in Idaho. Or I guess I had, but I didn't know all the details until I spoke with Suzanne Timms today. It is crazy. It is crazy, and it is so close to possibly being solved. We're going to talk about it all tonight. You're going to hear from her the unbelievable twists and turns of her missing mother, who vanished back in 1976. Would love to know where you're watching from, by the way, and would love to know if you have any questions. And if you have a bunch of questions, you can email questions@eastidahonews.com if you have them for Suzanne, and I can get those to her. Maybe we'll have her back so you can answer those questions. This is another one of those cases. Again, I didn't know about it till I was at CrimeCon, and they have the missing persons wall. I talked about this in past episodes. And I walked by, and I may have even done this on camera, where I saw Patty Otto's photo. This is Patricia Otto. In fact, I'm going to make this big there. Whoops, wrong screen. That is Patricia Otto. 5'3", 135 pounds, hazel eyes, blonde hair, 24 years old, date of birth August 4th, 1952. This was a missing persons reward that was issued back in 1976 when she was last seen, August 31st, 1976 in Lewiston, Idaho. They were offering a $3,000 reward, which I would imagine back then was a lot of money. So I see this poster, or a similar poster, at CrimeCon, and I mentioned, I don't know if I've heard of Patty Otto. And one of you reached out and said, I know Suzanne, her daughter, and she'll talk to you. And so I just spoke with her this morning. I'm going to play you the whole conversation in a minute after I had done a little bit of research, but there was even things that I did not know about that Suzanne told me that are just crazy to believe. So I'm going to summarize it briefly, and then we'll go to the interview. Patty Otto, 2 daughters, including Suzanne, who's 3, and her sister, who's 5. Parents are arguing. One night in 1976, Patty disappears. Dad is never charged. Her husband, Ralph, is never charged. However, he is charged for conspiring to kill a cop, a police officer. And in fact, I went to newspapers.com. These old cases, newspapers.com, they are a goldmine. And they are our sponsor. But they're not paying me to say nice things about them. I'm just telling you what I've experienced. I was able to find all of these old newspapers on this case within 30 minutes. So here is the newspaper clip about Ralph Otto being charged. Again, his wife's missing. His wife is gone. He is then charged for threatening to kill a cop who was investigating the disappearance of his wife. A 41-year-old Lewiston man has been charged with attempted first-degree murder for allegedly trying to hire a state liquor agent to kill Lewiston's police chief, says the Nez Perce County prosecutor. Attorney Merlin Clark said Ralph Otto allegedly gave an Idaho Department of Law Enforcement liquor agent $250 to kill police captain M. Dwayne Aller. Clark said Wednesday the complaint against Otto alleges he gave the agent the money. Eller's description, occupation, and place of work then promised another $750 upon completion of the job. The complaint against Otto alleges that the money was paid Tuesday. Otto was arrested at his home Wednesday. Clark said he'd recommend bond for $50,000 and was scheduled to be arraigned. It went to trial. He was found guilty of the crime, but went all the way to the Supreme Court and appealed, and the Supreme Court threw out the case. Then came out another story here from newspapers.com. Ralph Otto says he may move to Australia and go into the cattle business following a decision by the Idaho Supreme Court reversing his 1977 attempted murder conviction. The court voted 3-2 Thursday to reverse Otto's conviction, ruling there had not been enough evidence to support the charge. He was being held at the Idaho State Penitentiary in Boise. Releases often take 10 days after the conviction is reversed. He had a 10-year term for being convicted to kill the undercover agent. In a telephone interview, Otto said he was entrapped when police used a counterfeit hitman to record him offering $1,000 to an undercover agent. Otto, the Supreme Court said Otto was guilty of mere solicitation at most. Otto said he would not return to Lewiston. He said, I lived in the same house for 38 years. But when he returned to Lewiston on $300,000 bond for 8 months after his conviction, all of my friends had turned their backs on me. I didn't work a day during that 8 months because I couldn't get a job. He said he was going to go to Australia. Well, he didn't go to Australia. He got his two daughters back, Suzanne and her sister, and went back to the house. And then, crazy upon crazy, I don't know if I should reveal this if you don't know the story, because it's kind of wild. I'm going to tell it to you anyway. He goes home and he's hospitalized. After a little while, a year or two, several years maybe, he's in the hospital and he has convulsions and he ends up dying. This is when he was hospitalized. He dies, and Suzanne will tell you crazy circumstances around his death in the jail. Like his feet are de-skinned. I know. I didn't know that either. And it just gets crazier from there. I don't want to tell it all. I'm going to let Suzanne tell it. But this is a case that hopefully maybe we can help get final. I mean, it's almost there. As you'll hear her say, it's 99.9% solved. There's just a little bit more that needs to be done. And that's why I wanted to talk about it tonight and explore the crazy circumstances surrounding the death, the disappearance of Patty Otto. Here is her daughter, Suzanne Timms. Okay, so Suzanne, I got to be honest. I didn't know much about your mother's case. And doing research this morning, it's crazy. I don't know what else to say.
Funny, because meeting with you, I was like, I think I only have 30 minutes or an hour. How am I supposed to explain this case in 30 minutes or an
We
hour?
could do 30 days, I guess. But yeah, I want to go back to the beginning because 1976, right? Is that when your mom disappeared?
Correct.
Okay, so why don't you just start us there? How old were you? What was life like?
So, my sister and I were living with my mom and dad in Lewiston, Idaho in 76. She was just going to turn 5 in October, and I was just going to turn 3 in November. So we always say we were 3 and 5, but that's just because months happened, and then we turned 3 and 5. My mom and dad had been married for a couple of years. My father was an older, divorced man who owned his own business, and my mother was the babysitter for his previous girlfriend who had lived at the house with him. That's how they met, was she was babysitting for those kids. When mom got married, she decided she wanted to go back to school and do things to better her life. They had actually separated that spring, so she was going to college to actually care for us. She was at college classes the night of August 31st, so she took us to Grandma and Grandpa's house up in the orchards to go stay while mom was in class. She shows up at about 10 or 11 o'clock, picks us up, goes home, and is never seen again. Nobody thought to ask me or my sister what had happened that night because they just figured we were too small. And unfortunately, I heard the fight that night. So we were put to sleep downstairs, which is unusual because our bedroom's upstairs. So I was already aware something's not right, right? You're kind of on edge of like, why are we going down here? I don't want to sleep down in the basement. My bedroom's over there. I heard crashing noises, loud sounds. I snuck up the stairs to go see what was happening, and I just remember being paralyzed watching my mother and father hit each other. It wasn't a one-way fight. My mom was
Mm.
fighting back. And the last thing I remember was him grabbing her by her neck and dragging her out of my sight. I didn't know the words for strangulation. I didn't know the words for dead. I'm 3 years old. All I know was he grabbed and he hid, H-I-D, hid her, is what I told people.
Wow. So do you remember before this, had they had marital issues before? Had they had fights before?
I don't remember it because sadly, I was kind of raised to believe that my mother had abandoned us that night. So all I
Mm.
remember is that moment of her being taken away, and that moment played over and over in my head. I cannot recall prior to that her being this loving, wonderful mother. So when dad told us she doesn't want to be your mom anymore, she's gone, I just immediately was like, wow, it's weird because I know what I saw, but why would my dad lie to me, right? So we actually grew up thinking that she didn't want to be our mom and was never wanted to be around us. Prior to her disappearing, though, I had said she had filed or they had filed for divorce and she got her own place. So she was moving out. She had her own place, lived on her own for several months. And my dad, trying to manipulate her back, decided to go inpatient drug and alcohol treatment for his alcoholism. And when he got out, the court system, not the court system, but the hospital system told her it was her responsibility as a wife to support his sobriety. And she
Mm.
needed to come home and help him with that. She was gone within 90 days.
Oh my gosh. And obviously this is the, the late 70s. Things are much different today. And you, so what? Do you go back to bed and wake up? I know you're only 3, so you might not remember, but then you wake up the next morning and your dad's like, "Sorry, mom's gone."
I do absolutely remember this, and it's because I remember him being so mad that I didn't know where my shoes were at because I'm 3 and I'm supposed to be getting my shoes on, and I remember this being like, I'm a little kid. How am I supposed to know where my shoes are at, right? And he's in a big hurry to get us out of the house. The rest of it I can only piece together through police reports. So from that moment, he took us over across the river to Asotin County, where he was helping his girlfriend, the one that he had been dating prior to my mom, helping her move out of state. And I asked that woman, which is documented in a report, "Are you going to be my new mommy? Because I don't have one now." Why would a child say that at that age unless that whole car ride over he was explaining to us, "You don't have a mom no more. She's not coming back. She doesn't want to be your mother." And I'm immediately advocating, I need a mom. We're 3 and 5 years old. We can't live without a mother. So I obviously knew that she was not coming back. It's not till December of 1976 that I start telling my family why she's not coming back. And that's when I start telling them what happened. Why mom isn't coming back is because dad drug her out and he hit her. Hid. I was saying that they hit her.
Yeah.
And I explained to them this fight that they had. And then when they notified police that I was saying this, my dad shows up, removes me from that family, punches the uncle who's making the statement, and pulls us out of that home. So here we are. I'm spilling my guts out, telling him what's happening. And my dad's like, "You're never going to see him again." So he moved us from there to his family's house instead of her family's. So we were separated from the people that we knew again.
So she disappears in August. That's in December when you're telling her family dad hid her.
Yeah.
So 4 months have passed. In those 4 months, is your dad telling everybody, "Oh, she left me"? Is that the story, that she took off, doesn't want anything to do with us?
Yes. And in addition to that, he's complaining that the Lewiston Police Department is harassing him over her location. So this is when he hires a hitman to kill the captain of the Lewiston Police Department when he's down in his local bar. He had been going there for years and years, and this bartender liked to brag that he knew people to get rid of people. And so my dad asked him to call those people up and help him get rid of Captain Ayler, who was managing at that time my mother's case or overseeing it. So dad hires a hitman, and that's why dad actually went to prison, was for attempted murder of a policeman, not the disappearance of my mother. And
Y-
if you've looked at the articles, you see one article on my mom and 100 on my father.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's let's go down that road for a minute about your dad hiring the police captain, because that's crazy. So he obviously was a little nervous or worried that the police were not just going to take this at face value, that they were digging into it a little bit more. How far along did that plan to kill the captain progress, and how did the cops get onto that aspect of the investigation?
Thankfully, the bartender had already heard the news that my mom was missing, and everybody was suspicious that my father was involved. So he notified the Lewiston Police Department. "Ralph Otto's in here. His wife is missing. Everybody thinks it's him, and now he's trying to hire a hit." So the Lewiston Police said, "Arrange it. We'll send in one of our officers tomorrow." So an actual cop went in playing the role of a hitman. And my dad's been there his whole life. He'd lived there his entire 44 years at that time. So they said, "He'll know every cop. Don't send a Lewiston cop." So they got an Idaho State patrolman to drive up from Boise and come play the role of a hitman at a very last minute, wired him all up in the 70s. And he's supposed to stroll into this bar and get this guy to hire the hit. He did. He paid for the hit. He told him what weapon to use. He told him what his alibi was going to be. After this hit was arranged, he wanted 2 more people murdered. That's not something an innocent man does who's out claiming that his wife just abandoned his family, right? Why would he do that if he was innocent?
Hmm.
You wouldn't.
So they take him into custody, and I would imagine that they probably originally questioned him about your mom, but then as the pressure turned up with him to tell us where she's at, what'd you do with her?
From what I can read from the the actual trial, it was really focused on the hitman. They tried to keep
Mm,
those two cases very separate.
right.
Occasionally things would come up and they would try to dismiss that because that's not relevant in this case.
Yeah.
So the
Right.
jurors that were convicting him on this attempted murder had no idea, or maybe they did because they're local people, that isn't it kind of suspicious that his wife is missing?
Yeah.
And yeah, he's the reason he hired the hit was because he was getting too close and he had given and disclosed too much information to this particular captain. My dad
Hmm.
walked into the police station high on Valium and alcohol and said a lot of incriminating things, which of course,
About the conspiracy to kill the cop.
he says a lot of he says a lot of things in that 4-page report that really show what his mind was like at the time. He openly admits that he's going to get his guns back. He came to get his guns back. He showed up, said, I'm going to kill myself or kill this guy that my mom was with. And so he handed all of his guns over. On this event, he shows back up to get his guns back. And he tells him, I want my guns back because I'm going to kill Randy Benton. He just blatantly says it. And they keep telling him, you can't go around killing people. He says, give me my gun, and then you'll know what happened to him and her.
Oh my.
He just wants to finish this guy off. He wants to kill this guy and be done with him. And then he starts talking about he has no issues hitting women. He talks about the time he hit his previous wife, the time he punched my mother in the face. He's like openly bragging about the fact that he's this very violent person who can't get himself calmed back down once he gets worked up. And once he leaves there, he realizes they probably recorded that. They they more than likely recorded that and they are going to hang me on that. And that's the cop he wanted to get rid of was that guy.
I see. Okay.
He wanted him gone because he's like, I said way too much. I ran my mouth. It was the stupid Valium. I didn't mean to say all that. And he wanted him gone.
Suzanne, do you know, did your dad have a rough childhood?
I mean, I know my dad's child because I was adopted by his sister. So I know his family. I know the family. What happened is his father died very young at the age of 39, and then 2 years later, his brother drowned on the Snake River in front of the whole family. So he
Oh,
did have two back-to-back traumas. So have I, and I have never gone around murdering people or hiring people to be
right.
murdered. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
no excuse, obviously. Just wondering if it always makes me wonder, how do you go from a normal childhood or even a childhood with trauma to being such an angry, violent person?
alcohol,
Hmm.
alcohol abuse. I think that he started grieving the loss of his brother and his father with alcohol, and when he drank, he became a different person. He was not the same person when he was sober.
Hmm.
It's
Wow. Okay, so you're living with his family when the trial happens for the hiring a hitman.
mhm. And what we're told is that he was entrapped and the police trapped him. They forced him to say these things and he never did anything wrong. So we're believing that the cops are the bad guy. Why would they entrap my father? He's this poor grieving man and they forced him to say these things. You can read the transcript. You can read the actual tape that was transcribed. No, my father is not some innocent grieving man. He is an angry, jealous husband who did not get his way and he's trying to cover up any evidence that he's in the wrong.
But he's found guilty,
He's found guilty, sentenced to 10 years.
10 years, and did he serve the full 10?
No, he took it to the Supreme Court and fought it, and the Supreme Court said what he did was not attempted murder, it was solicitation of murder. So they charged him with the incorrect crime, so they had to just let him go. So after
Wow.
serving 4 years, he shows back up to pick my sister and I back up from the house we've been living in for 4 years, picks us up and brings us right back into that home.
Where your mom disappeared from.
Correct.
So at that time you're like what, 7, 8 years
Eight,
old?
yeah, 8 and 10 years old.
And you're a little more mature, a little more wise, but still a child. In your mind, do you remember, were you putting things together like, something's not right, or were you just kind of going along with the story?
It's funny because I'm trying to tell myself, hey, dad's home. That means mom's going to come home and everything's great.
Hmm.
But for some strange reason, I broke out in head to toe with welts and ended up in the hospital. And the hospital said sometimes children going through rapid changes can have these kind of, immune responses, and it's really just anxiety. And I'm like, yeah, as an adult now, I wonder why I was anxious. I'm going back into a home where I watched my father murder my mother, and you and no one around me is protecting me. They're all telling me that I just dreamt this terrible event. and I'm going to go back into this house with who to protect me? My sister who's 10. So it's very conflicting that you're like, "Oh, yay, my family's going to be back together," but inside I was internally a wreck. I knew this wasn't right and I knew it wasn't safe.
Yeah. So what happens then?
He kept us at the house for about a year. That was 1981 to 82. And he was a horrible father. Obviously, he's a drunk. He's never home. He's off womanizing again. And he made it his decision that he packed us up and said, I can't do this. I'm not well enough. I can't take care of you girls. And he just packed us up and brought us back out to our aunt's house. And he was dead within the next year. He died in police
His
custody.
sister's house.
Yeah, we went back to his sister's house where we had been for all that time. And that was my stable home. So happy to go back out to a stable home. But we didn't really understand why dad couldn't take care of us,
And how
other
did
than
he
that he was
die?
a drunk. He was arrested for a theft charge in Nez Perce County and then transferred up to Clearwater County. And they said he was too intoxicated to sign his paperwork. He coded in the shower and they said he had a cardiac arrest.
Wow.
Mm.
And he was gone.
He was gone, as well as the skin on his feet and 8 patches of skin all over his body. So it's really weird that you can have a cardiac arrest and your feet fall off. But
Wait, what?
I'm not joking. I'm not joking. We were
How
told,
did he lose the skin off his feet?
I don't know, but I have pictures of it in the autopsy report. They can't explain why he's degloved and why he's missing all these patches of skin all over his feet, but he is. We
Oh
don't find
my.
that out till we're adults and we get the autopsy report, and I'm like, that's not a cardiac arrest. That's his heart stopped because something was causing trauma to his body. You don't just deglove your feet because your heart stops. Something
Mm.
caused that.
So what how do you think he died?
I don't even want to get into the conspiracy theories of what I
Okay,
think,
we don't have to, but
but I do think that they were trying to get from him, where is she?
mm, yeah.
Where, how is it that he dies in their custody? And they said he was too drunk to stand up. His blood alcohol is 0.001. He's not drunk. He's been he's been harmed in some way.
Mm.
That's what
And
my
this
thought is.
and he's in
I can show
his
you the pictures. You'll be like, this doesn't make any sense. Everybody that's looked at those pictures are like, his feet are gone. I mean, literally gone. He's degloved. They were
and thi-
inside of his cowboy boots.
uh, oh my gosh, this is what he's in his late 40s at this
Yeah,
point.
48, 48, 49. Yeah, he's,
So
yeah.
you guys are living with your aunt. At what point are people still like looking for your mom? Is there still the word out that she's missing, or does it kind of go quiet?
No, I don't think anybody's looking for my mother at this point because you can see in 1976, the Lewiston Tribune ran that one little tiny, like this big of an article saying, hey, we're looking for her. We're not really sure what's going on. Never again was there any kind of community alert, anything saying she's still a missing person. We believe she's endangered. Nothing was ever put out again until 1997 when my sister and I get old enough that we start saying, have everybody forgotten that we have a mother that disappeared? And like, why is nobody talking about this? Why does nobody even mention her name? And the answers that we got were, well, we don't really know what happened, so it was probably just better not to talk about it. But I didn't even have a picture of my mom. I didn't even know what she looked like. Like I had nothing to remind me of my mother. It seemed all very strange. So when we got the police reports, we asked for my mother's and my father's, Natalie and I, my sister, and we go through these. And I've said this many times. I read about 5 pages of the police reports, and I'm like, I did not dream what happened that night. I can
Mm.
read 5 pages of this, and I can see clearly, even though I'm 19 years old, I can see clearly my father did this. He's responsible. Nobody else other than him is responsible.
Wow. So you and your sister take it a mission to try to get answers, right?
However,
And
we have different theories.
what did
Natalie's,
you do? I
oh,
mean, how do you do that when the case is 20 years old and I'm sure there's been a change in leadership at the police departments and prosecution. I mean, you're looking at something that's 2 decades old.
yeah. So at that time, we started talking to the witnesses who were in the reports. We went to my dad's friends. We went to go ask the people he had called 2 friends that night to ask for help. And they said, dude, it's late. Call me tomorrow. Guess who never called tomorrow? So we went back to those friends. What was going on? What was dad like after that? Was he searching for her? Did he ever ask you if you'd seen her? We went and did our own investigation. We met with the original police detective. Tom Saline was on it in 1976, and we found him again in like 1998. Found him. He's an older retired guy there in Lewiston. Met with him, talked about the whole case. He insisted our father was responsible. My sister insisted the police department is responsible for their failed efforts. So we are all coming at it from different directions. My thought was she's just going to turn up and we'll find her body and we'll know it was her. She did not leave. I kept trying to insist to my sister she did not leave. That was all a lie. That was what dad sold to us.
Did your
That's my,
sister still think she'd left?
no. This is why I told you that this story is insane. 1997 to 2006, my sister goes up to Orfino, which is where my father had died in 1983. There's a big old beautiful lake up there, Dorshak Lake. Her and her entire family die of carbon monoxide poisoning while they're on the lake in Orfino.
What?
No, I wish
I didn't read that part this morning.
no, I wish I could like I have you ever seen Jim Carrey in his Truman Show? You know,
Yes.
everybody else knows and they're aware of what's going on. I said there have been times that I'm like, seriously, you guys are
Have,
all in on this, and this is not real, right?
has anybody done like a docuseries on this story?
Netflix and Unsolved Mysteries were both very interested, and they came back and said they think the story's too old and it won't buy any kind of buy-in from people because it goes on News Nation Dateline and people see 49 years and they dismiss it. They immediately dismiss it because this case is the same as you cover thousands of these, Nate. The husband's always responsible. It just gets old. They're like, it's the same old case. Everybody knows. What they don't know is this case would totally be solved, and it is going to be solved all because of community involvement and social media. Social media is going to solve my mother's 49-year-old missing person case because
Mm.
that's what's brought me here. That's why this case is getting attention, why it's in the limelight is wait, we're getting off though. We're talking about where we're at. Natalie dies. 2006, Natalie dies. Her husband, my only 12-year-old nephew, and my boys were supposed to go. I had two young boys at the time, and I, for some reason, held back and said, "No, I'll take you next weekend." So he asked a neighbor kid, 12-year-old neighbor kid. All four of them died.
Oh, oh my gosh.
It was foggy, and so my brother-in-law slowed down on the lake, and that caused the fog to push the jet fumes of the boat down. And while they were driving, they just were overcome with carbon monoxide, and they all died.
As they're in the boat
As
riding
they're in the
along.
boat driving along. The Coast Guard came in, CBS News came in. This was front page all over. This never happens. People don't die driving in a boat. He had to have done something wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. The Coast Guard just said it's a perfect storm. Fog causes the condensation, push the gas down. They didn't know what was happening. They're in an open boat, just driving along in a jet boat. You become
Unbelievable.
confused
Okay,
and
so
die.
let me ask you, how did you take that news? That would have had to be crushing.
That is really, really hard for people to understand because if you've lost a sibling, they're like, yeah, I've lost a brother, I've lost a sister. She was my world. She
Mm.
was my mother. She was my father. She was my protector. She was not just my sister. She was everything to me. I didn't take it well. I was in denial. I said that she's not in the casket. I said that this is all just a big hoax, that Natalie got close to finding out something, maybe this case with my dad and, police brutality. I don't know. I thought maybe she found something and they had to silence her and that she was off in witness protection. She's not really dead.
Oh man. So
Yeah,
you
I
guys,
don't.
before she passed during that, what, 8, 10 years, are you guys consistently working, trying, obviously you got the
Yes.
police reports, you got the
Yeah.
document, you're trying to put together the case.
We have our own files. We have our own, interview statements that we did. We had called and gotten a forensic update of what she might have looked like that time. We were doing all of our own stuff at that time and had a huge case file. But when Natalie died, I said, I just can't even touch that right now. Can somebody else please take it? I have to empty this entire house. My
Hmm.
sister's whole house. So I said, can somebody else please take this? I don't want to deal with it. I did not touch that case until 2021 when I was laying in bed scrolling through Facebook and I see myself in a missing person poster and I was like, why did somebody draw me as a Jane Doe? That's disgusting. Like, why would somebody do that? It's literally my face. And I click on it And then it describes the white blouse and the red pants that my mom was wearing. It says the body's found in 1978. It says she has blonde hair, that she's 5'3", and I'm like, wait a minute. They're describing my mom, but they drew a picture of me. Why would they draw a picture of me? I've never been told I look like my mother. I
Mhm.
honestly, in my mind, her face is just not even anywhere near mine. And I'm thinking, is this, wait, is this her? This is her and she looks like me or I look like her and but where is this case? What is this? How could this possibly be in 2021 that this lady's
And
getting a face?
and this is just in your Facebook feed. You're just scrolling and it's right
Fully
there.
scrolling through Facebook, Pacific Northwest for the missing is the page, and I reach out to them and say, "This is me. This is the Jane Doe that you guys drew, and this is my missing mom. What am I missing, right? Like, how is this possible? How would we miss this? She's literally wearing the same clothes that my mother was wearing the night she disappeared in 1976. Red slacks and a white sleeveless blouse. Not
Mm.
like she was wearing a white sweater, a white sleeveless blouse. And that I found out that that forensic image came from a group of volunteers in La Grande, Oregon, who just happened to pick up a local case, and it's a small community. You're in southern Idaho, right?
Yeah, Eastern Idaho.
Eastern Idaho. So LeGrand is, I mean, LeGrand is kind of a big city, but LeGrand only had one unidentified Jane Doe, one
Mhm.
case. And this little group picked it up and said, "What? We have a Jane Doe here in LeGrand. Let's advocate for her." They were able to get the whole case file, which is 44 pages long, a case file for a
40,
homicide.
44 pages.
44
Wow.
pages that included the photographs and the autopsy.
Mm.
It's a closed case, so they were able to get the photos and everything. And they sent those photos to a forensic anthropologist. His name's Anthony Redgrave at Redgrave Research. And he used what they know and used the photos of the skull. And that's how he created my face.
Oh my gosh.
And when he realizes, what?
So wait, why did they close the case?
That's a great question. Why would Oregon have a case that's 12 years old and they say, we don't know who she is, who buried her in the woods? Nobody ever came back to claim her. Close the case, destroy the evidence. 1990.
And this is the first you're hearing about it in 2021.
It's the first I'm seeing the face, but it's
Seeing the face.
not the first time I'm hearing the case, which
Right,
is
right, 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 right.
interesting. Because in 1978, my grandparents told us they're pretty sure that they found your mom in Oregon and we're flying over to Oregon to go look at her right now. And grandma and grandpa came back in 1978 and said, the body's wearing the same clothes. Like, it's got to be her. They're going to do the forensic dental examination, whatever. And in 1 week, they found out that, oh, the dentals don't match, so it's not her. So we had already heard of the red pants doe in Oregon because we knew that my grandparents flew over there and looked at the clothes. So we were very familiar with this case.
So was it her and they just lied? Or
There's
was
no
it someone
there's no
else?
evidence of who she is because Oregon cremated her in 1990, did not take an x-ray of her, did not keep DNA of her. So there is nothing other than these autopsy photos and the 44-page report for this case at all. The clothes are gone. They can't find them. The body, they send it off to be cremated. This is where it also gets weird. Oregon at the time did not have a crematorium, so LeGrand sent her to the nearest place. One of the papers in the file shows that she was sent to Walla Walla, Washington in 1999. No, 1990. She was sent to Walla Walla in 1990. I left Idaho and moved to Walla Walla in 1999.
Mm.
For my first job here, I was leaving Idaho, moving here, came in 1999, ended up getting a divorce, met a new man who's local and remarried. And this is where it gets super crazy, where people say this absolutely cannot be.
Yeah, okay. This is what I read this morning.
Now,
You're lying
now
in
that
bed, right?
I'm lying in bed with my
Yeah.
husband, and he already thinks I'm crazy because I see the Jane Doe poster, and he's like, "Why would anybody draw you?" Oh, that is weird. He's like, "That is weird, right?" Then I get the newspaper article, and it said the body was found in 1978 by two hunters from Milton Freewater, Lee Swiger and Lee Parr and Ron Swiger. Lee is my husband's grandfather, and Milton Freewater is a tiny town of like 4,000 people, right 15 minutes away from us. And I said to him, did your grandpa ever mention finding a body when they're out? And he's like, now you sound really crazy. Right? I mean, I really sound crazy. And I hand him the newspaper article and he's like, what the hell? Wait, what? There cannot be two Lee Pars in Milton Free Water.
Right.
And I'm like, well, your grandpa died in 2007, but I can ask your dad. He works up here at the prison. He's an officer at the prison. I call my father-in-law. Did grandpa ever mention finding a body in 1978? And my father-in-law says, that's not something you ever forget.
Right.
Let me tell you what it felt like as you're walking down the trail and you see a human skull sticking up, a jaw laying over here, and boots crisscrossed. And I have those photos of the crime scene that Mel had given me. I'm looking at the photos. He's describing how the jaw's laying over here, the head's up, and the boots are crisscrossed. And I'm like, wait, how were you there? I don't understand. Like, why would my father-in-law be there? He said it was several families camping and they all had their kids. It wasn't the men that found the body, it was these kids
Oh my gosh.
that found the remains. And I was like, wait,
So,
what?
so just so we're clear, your husband's family found what is likely your mom's missing body
Before my husband was even born, to make it
before
more
he was even
confusing,
born and before you were married, all that.
decade before we were married. We didn't get married till 2010. This is in 1978.
Unbelievable.
Right, completely unbelievable. So I'm like, there is no way, there's no way that the forensic artist drew this face and it's me. There is no way that I left Idaho and of all places, I end up here where she is also sent to be
Hmm.
here. I marry the one person, one guy that happens to be connected to this case, and you're going to tell me that this is not some kind of my mom trying to solve this from the other side? And she's like, you're old enough to get this figured out, so you better do it now.
Mm. Oh my gosh. You can't like you couldn't write that. You couldn't write that.
It's like, yeah.
So you realize this with your husband. You realize this with the Jane Doe poster. What do you do from there?
We immediately contacted the forensic anthropologist to find out was he aware of my mom's case and kind of like, manipulated the photo or anything. He'd never even heard of my mom's case. He's a Massachusetts forensic anthropologist who was just given the photos. So he's like, no, absolutely not. But the likeness between me and the doe and my mom, he said it is extremely strong, and I need to call the Oregon State anthropologist and speak to her directly. So Anthony calls Oregon and explains what happened. Oregon says, well, that's great and all, but that's all circumstantial. So without DNA, we can't prove anything.
Mm. And
And
she's gone, so do you have any DNA from before she was cremated?
no. So what we did do is track down a box of unclaimed cremains here in Walla Walla because we don't have any missing Jane or John Does that were discovered in the last 100 years. What they do have is a box of remains that's labeled miscellaneous cremains, and the order going out was miscellaneous remains because it was suspected that she was pregnant at the time that they discovered her buried in the woods.
Oh my.
So it makes sense that they would call her miscellaneous remains because it's a woman and part of a baby's skull or part small bones that they found.
Hmm.
Oregon also, unfortunately, did not do a death certificate.
Mm.
So there's no death certificate on her. There is no x-ray on her jaw before they cremated her. There was no official Oregon dental examination. From the case, you can read that a decade later, the FBI reaches out to Oregon and says, hey, we're still waiting on the dentals for that doe that you have. And you can see that they recreated the record based off what they knew. And it is my theory, and I can show this through documentation, that another doe had been found a month earlier, and he used that record to fill in her record. And it's extremely extensive with like 13 different fillings and unerupted wisdom teeth. And that's what he writes on the chart, but it's negated in the photos. You can see her wisdom teeth in the photos, and you can see her clear teeth. So the chart that they have matches this first doe, doesn't even match the second doe. And Oregon's like, well, without an x-ray and without DNA, there's nothing we can do. It's all just circumstantial.
Mm. Jeez. So, I mean, do you feel any sense of closure?
I feel like I'm 99.9% certain that this was my mother and that she never left me because if she was found in different clothes, it would have been this question of how long had she been out there. Grandma and Grandpa saw her in the red pants and the white blouse. She literally went from home to a grave, and I believe
Mm.
my father's the one that put her there. So closure, in a way, you feel this like for the first time in my life, I'm not looking in every crowd and seeing is that a face I recognize. I'm not doing that anymore. And I believe it's because I know in my heart he did what I saw that night. This is the answer that I need, but it's just extremely frustrating to get this far and be told that without DNA, which they didn't have in 1978, they would have just identified her by her clothes,
Hmm.
that I'm left and her family is left. She still has living siblings. We're left with no answers. Just the hope. And why can't you just accept that?
Yeah. So let me see, Suzanne, I guess from the time from when she vanished to when she was actually found, how long was that?
2 years.
Just 2 years. But yet
Yeah,
you didn't
almost
know.
almost to the date. Almost to the date, 2 years.
So her body wouldn't have been, completely, it would have been somewhat intact, I would imagine.
There was some flesh on the knees, and there was still hair on the head, but because of the acidity in the Eastern Oregon forest, the acidity, it does decompose the body pretty quickly.
Mm.
But you could see her hair on in some of the photos of the skull, and you can see her wavy, light brown, blondish hair, and there would it would have been a ton of DNA on that body. It's also interesting that when Rob said the boots were crisscrossed, sticking up in the air, it's interesting that she's wearing these men's boots. They look like hiking boots. And I believe those threw my grandparents off because my mom would never wear something like that. She was very classy and a very well-dressed person. However, if my father got her body out there and he was going to go with the whole theory of she ran off, she needed to have shoes on.
Mm.
And I think he was manipulative enough to say, if I put the shoes on, it may look like she left on her own. Days after my mother disappeared, family members are called to my dad's house and he's wandering around the yard, shoeless, completely confused and hallucinating in the backyard.
Mm.
That seems like a weird coincidence that he's shoeless.
Shoeless. His boots are
Shoeless.
gone.
His boots are gone. Where are they?
Wow.
Yeah, but it's just a lot of circumstantial evidence. And, you know, my testimony means nothing because I was 3 and nobody officially was able to speak with me.
Yeah.
Um, every witness and every person we interviewed gave me the 100% closure that my father was responsible and everything he did from the day after that pointed to his guilt. But no one wanted to break me and my sister's heart and say, your dad's a murderer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they just kind of played into it.
How do you think it'd be different today? I would imagine with DNA and with cell phone tracking and all that, you think they would have solved it?
Can, can you imagine it's if it happened today, this young 24-year-old mother disappeared today, it would be all over the news that we're
Yeah.
all doing a missing person alert and we're all sharing and they're like, dude, I saw him driving down this road
Mhm.
because he had to have driven down that road to get there and there was some weird activity out there. Or if the hunters found her, clothing, the everything, all that is just covered in DNA. They would have been able to get an x-ray, compare all that. I mean, I've just uncovered so much frustrating pieces of the missing persons case. I asked Idaho to please re-compare my mother's x-ray, and I discovered that in 2021, Idaho did not have an x-ray of my mother.
Mm.
NamUs did not have an x-ray of my mother, but they have a record on file with nothing to support it. No
Yeah.
x-ray. So how can they, what were they comparing any Jane Doe to all these years? It's been 49 years. What have they been comparing to? They have a record that says my mother had her wisdom teeth removed. So somebody just entered that into NamUs that she had her wisdom teeth removed. And I have an x-ray that shows that she has all 4 and one of them is problematic. They won't change it. They won't change it, even though I have the x-ray and I provided them a copy of the x-ray. They still
Yeah.
won't change it. It shows she has no wisdom teeth. So she will never match even to her own body because NamUs and FBI on file has that she has none.
What do you say to other families who have missing loved ones after your experience?
I have lots to say. 99% of missing persons are recovered quickly. So you cannot expect your local police department to take every 15-year-old girl that turns up missing, every 21-year-old guy, and even an 8-year-old kid who turns up missing. They're going to take the kids seriously. But these adults, they don't take them seriously because the majority of them turn back up very quickly.
Mhm.
What family needs to know and what the community needs to know is we can recover these people quickly and safely if everybody's working together. If we are all working together, we can recover these people immediately. We would not be having these decades and decades go by. But that takes effort from everyone. When you now need the police department, a week has passed and your person hasn't shown up, you have built a case knowing what did the neighbors see? What was she last wearing? What does the bank account look like? Do we have the dental records? You can already have all this stuff ready to go so that if your loved one doesn't return, you haven't sat by and done nothing thinking that the police department's actively seeking a homicide investigation because they can't. They just don't have the manpower to do that.
And now, this day and age with social media, like you said, it'd be shared all over the place. How many people are doing their own investigations and just saying, I'm going to solve this myself, and are actually doing it, or actually solving it?
You can, and you can see it happening. You see that they're actually finding them and bringing them home. But like I said, one person can't do it. I just can't put a post out there and expect me to solve it. Because of my Patty's voice that I have, I've had witnesses come forward. My dad did confess to a friend. That person came forward and said, "Hey, my mom shared this, and we want you to know. This is what he said. He admits
Mhm.
that he killed her. He didn't want to go to prison because he figured they were going to kill him in prison, and he wanted somebody to know so he could get it off of his chest." Because of social media, we got that information. Because of social media, I was able to connect with those two guys he called that night, right? I'm able to find them. I found Bonnie on social media. I found the original girlfriend, his alibi for the day after. I was able to find her on social media. That would have taken police years to get into all that and do all those interviews and follow up with these people. But I also think they're going to give you, as the family, a lot more information than they may give the police department.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
just skeptical.
that there, you're right. There's some people don't feel comfortable talking to detectives or officers. They'd rather talk to the family. So, with
Yeah.
that being said, Suzanne, how can people reach you? I mean, do you have a way without sharing your personal phone number and email?
I am extremely reachable, and I am on Patty's Voice on Facebook, Patty's Voice on TikTok, Patty's Voice on Instagram, and I have her own email out there. It's Patty's Voice at outlook.com. We have her own email. We highly encourage people to reach out and share their cases with us because I decided that my mom's voice was taken from her and nobody advocated for her. But Patty's voice is including all missing persons, and we're going to be loud for all these people and share these and get them out there. We just recently had a case from Western Washington for a young girl, Haley, and we were able to reach 30,000 people in a very short amount of time. 30,000 people who saw Haley's case instead of zero had I not have shared it. So I know that we can make an incredible difference. And I so appreciate what you're doing and getting, these cases out there and getting them covered because you have a big audience.
Well,
People trust you.
I appreciate you sharing. And it doesn't take much effort really for me to have you come on and talk about this and open your heart and share your experience. But there are people out there watching that probably know something or at least can help you or other families when we feature these cases. And so again, I'm really glad you offered to talk with me. I didn't realize there were so many twists and turns when I set this up with you. But wow, what an ordeal. Is there anything that you think people need to know that we didn't touch on?
I think, again, I just want to give credit to the Finley Creek Jane Doe Task Force because they are just volunteers. And these people are not somebody who works directly with law enforcement. These are just community members who cared enough. And I would love to see that more. If each community really took on their missing group of people, we wouldn't have these cases that are going decades and decades because the whole community is working towards it. So highly encourage. It doesn't take much for you to get together and create a Facebook page for a missing person to advocate. And that family that's currently grieving, my grandparents went through hell. They were on their own. My grandfather was a retired Lewiston Fire Department chief. Why was he just left alone in this investigation? He's just waiting for them to find a body. And who's advocating for her? He thinks the police department's doing it, and the community's like, well, we're just waiting to find a body. Nobody was doing anything. Nobody was actively searching and getting her story out there. There's many people in Lewiston that don't know my mother's case. It's overshadowed by the LC Valley killers because that starts happening just, a few years after my dad is arrested and goes away, that LC Valley killer starts happening there. It just
Mhm.
completely got overshadowed. Her case was never mentioned again until now.
Yeah.
Till now that they're
Well,
like, wait, what?
yeah, right.
Wait, you found yourself on social media. You found yourself in a, missing persons poster. It sounds all crazy until you start looking at all the pieces and you're like, this is legit.
Yeah.
This is real.
Patty's Voice on Facebook. That's the
Patty's.
group. Connect, reach out to Suzanne if you have any information. And as I said, I'm really glad you're sharing your story, and I hope you'll keep me updated if there's any new developments or anything's along the way. And I want to send this off to people I know at Netflix. And did
You're
they
like,
do a
what's
date?
wrong with
They
you?
they do a
Date,
Dateline 2020 on these back in the
Dateline,
day,
Dateline hasn't done it. Dateline hasn't done it. Oh, Dateline did a little online blurb, but they
like a
didn't do that.
Missing in America thing.
Yeah, yeah, they did one of
Yeah.
those, but they didn't do the actual story. And again, they just say when these cases get so old, people lose interest in it because they think it's so old, you're never going to be able to solve it. And I'm like, this case is so close to being solved. If science advances to where we can extract DNA out those cremains, or what if science advances to where the grave site where she was buried at, and my father-in-law knows right where it's at, brought us to the spot and said that's where the body was at. What if her DNA is all through that forest? Is there going to be science that eventually lets us pull the tree and say there was a decomposing human here at some point and
And it was
she's
her.
got the same DNA as me?
Yeah.
I'm not going to give
Well,
up.
throughout this, what a series of obstacles in your life, Suzanne, too. So I admire you and your dedication for going through tragedy after tragedy after tragedy and still keeping it alive. I see the pictures behind you. Um,
Ah,
what's the one on the left?
it says I stand for Patty.
I stand for Patty.
That
Okay.
and that the big one is she had gotten her driver's license renewed just days before she disappeared, and that was the
Mm,
original photo that they used for her missing person, the flyer.
right.
One thing that I do need too is I have not been able to locate the actual all points bulletin for when she was considered missing.
Mm,
I really don't think that ever happened. I don't think an APB ever went out to be on the alert for her. I think that was another lapse in the system. But if somebody could come up with that to show me, I have the APB for the Jane Does. I have both of those. When those bodies were found, I have the all points bulletin for both bodies. But why do I not have one for a missing person? And my case file is
interesting.
it's big. It's a big case file. It is not 44 pages. One interview was 45 pages
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
mom's. Lewiston did a great job.
You
They
you don't
really did,
you don't find a homicide case or a missing person case that's 44 pages,
including the autopsy.
including the photos. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
includes the autopsy. That is absolutely absurd to me. And what it looks like is that decades later, they went back and they were like, this case is absolutely horrifically done. Just make it go away.
Mm,
Just quietly make it go away and nobody will ever notice. And
yeah.
unfortunately, I did.
Suzanne, keep speaking out. Thank you very much. Good chatting with you. Isn't that just a crazy story? It is wild, and I can't thank Suzanne for talking with me enough. Now, just here as I'm recording, Suzanne sent me some documents, and I'm going to review them with you. I have not been through them all, so we're going to be seeing them together. Let me switch over here to this screen. This is an information report. If you can, I can't. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. I can't, unfortunately. Oh, maybe I can. Whoop. Okay. This is an information report from July 9th, 1990, Department of State Police, Salem, Oregon. On 8/27/78, William Swigger found a shallow grave containing remains of a female. Evidence was seized and processed. It could not be determined how the victim died, nor was the victim ever identified. This case was discussed with the Union County District Attorney. Because of the age of this case, he has authorized the destruction of evidence. Case closed. Case closed. That's how they were able to officially close it and cremate her. So this was July 9th of 90. You can see it in the top left corner. And she was found on August 27th of 78. So less than 2 years, and they closed it out. Wow. Next document. Oh, here's a newspaper's Lewiston Morning Tribune when he was charged with assault. Dental worksheet. This shows the cavities on the body, and the autopsy report looks like there was fillings. Now this next photo, I'm going to warn you, is the feet of Ralph Otto. Just a warning. Turn away. That's him in the jail. And you can see that One of the feet is, yeah. Here's a letter from the city of Lewiston. Dear Miss Wagner, pursuant to our telephone conversation, I'm making available dental charts from Patricia Lee Otto. Otto is listed as missing person at our department. Our case number is such and such. Otto's a white female, DOB 845253-120, hazel blonde. Social security number for your information is missing under suspicious circumstances and no leads have developed of disappearance. I hope this will be of assistance. Here's a picture of the family, Ralph and Patricia. That might be Suzanne there in the picture. There's a picture, beautiful woman. There they are on their wedding day. And it looks like this is the police report, 5 pages, written on 1/9/77. So this is the whole police report, and a follow-up report that's 4 pages from 9/21/76. And this looks like it is another police report. So just some, I didn't have time to review these before coming on here. That's March 10th of 86. So I just wanted to show those to you, and so many questions about this case. And I hope that we can help get some answers. Again, my thanks to Suzanne for chatting with me, because this is quite a story, and I'm glad that we can put some light on that. Thank you for watching, too. Thank you for your interest in these. Again, these are the type of cases I want to talk about. I want to share with you all, and I hope that you, can get something out of this, and hopefully we can help get some answers for the people who are out there. Again, my thanks to newspapers.com. Use them a lot in preparing for tonight's episode and in doing research for these cases that are a little bit older. You can find Patty's case on that Facebook page. And again, this is there's a bunch of websites. This is Project Cold Case with missing newspaper clippings and rewards. All on the internet, and tonight we remember Patty Otto and hope that answers can come. Thank you again for watching. Here's where you can keep in touch with me. I'm on Facebook, Insta, X, and YouTube. Subscribe if you haven't. Would love to have you subscribing along. We will be back next week with more Courtroom Insiders, some good ones up the sleeve that I hope to announce very soon, and I hope you'll stay tuned, and I hope you have a great weekend.